Welcome to the raw and uncensored Ambitchious Podcast. During our time here together, I will be instilling all of the strength, power, and determination you will need to use the very stones thrown at you to build your ultimate empire. We will redefine the word bitch from the derogatory to the acronym being in total control of herself. So let's adjust our crowns and prepare to live life ambitiously. Oh, yeah, here I am, the original HBIC, Katie motherfucking Boyd. And today we're in the Ambitchious Podcast studio with my good friend for over 15 motherfucking years. I just saw a pubic hair on my vagina turn white while I was saying this. Caroline Dale. I know her as Caroline Dale, but she's Caroline Dale Moran now because she married this hot piece of ass Jesse who looks like JFK Jr. And we're going to be talking about babies, pregnancy, infertility. And now I'm getting horny because I'm thinking about you having sex with Jesse because he's so fucking fly. And you're a hot piece of ass too. Oh. So it's just two beauteous people making sweet, sweet love. Caroline, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure and honor.
Best day of my life today.
Best day of my life.
I couldn't wait for you to get here. I was getting like, when is my friend coming to hang out with me?
We're having a lady.
And I haven't seen you in so long in real life.
It's been so long.
Obviously, we know each other through, you know where, in the gram.
Yes.
That's where we see each other.
We see each other in the gram. But we have a history that goes beyond the gram.
Caroline knew me before I was like spiritual Katie Boyd. She knew me when I was like a hoe for show, partying, shaking my tits at all the clubs in Boston, and then like showing up drunk to Katie Boyd's Misfit Club to train her mom and her mom's sister, Deb and Mossy.
The twins.
The Twinkies. That's what I used to call them.
Gosh, and they love you so much.
I love them too. Shout out to them. And Andy and Gemma and all of the people.
All of these people in my family.
So we go back like babies and pacifiers. Mm. We really do. Yeah. But today we're going to be talking about babies and pacifiers. Because as you know, we've talked about this extensively. Yeah. I've been going through all of my fertility stuff. And now it's time to talk about your fertility stuff because you're actually going to educate me today because I feel like I get no education from any of these doctors out there because they just want to gaslight me and talk about how I should get a fucking hysterectomy and that maybe they should allow me to keep my ovaries. I know. Did I even tell you that yet?
No.
Oh, we're going to talk about that today.
Okay.
So Caroline is first going to start us off on her baby making journey. And obviously you guys know that I always try to come raw and real and come correct. So I want to give you my 2 cents and my experience too, as Caroline is educating us, entertaining us, and empowering us because so many of our listeners are going through very, very, very similar stories than we are both. I mean, obviously our stories are different, but a lot of women like have been reaching out to me and being like, thank you so much for being so brave and talking about your infertility and what you've been going through. And guess what? As we were talking about before you came down here to the podcast studio, no one fucking teaches us this shit.
They don't. And that is my biggest issue. I wish that I had known that fertility had a lifespan and that,
Dude.
You know, that there were things that I could do to help and things to hinder and the different medical models and the holistic approaches.
Yes.
So I'm there with you because all of our lives as young women, we were taught not to get pregnant.
Yes.
But we weren't, we didn't learn how to protect our fertility.
Yes.
So that's a big thing for me.
And you went to private school?
I did.
So I went to Catholic school, which is not the same, but very similar in a lot of ways. Yeah. And what I learned was like the Christian sexuality, which was like, don't get pregnant. You should never see a penis until your wedding night. When they put you in like schmucks and they make you have sex through the holes of the schmucks. Is that even like a thing? I think that's a thing. I feel like I heard it's a thing. Isn't it a thing? It could be like an Amish thing that I could just be making. It seriously is. Like they wrap you to a board at night. Yeah. That's how I was raised. And then when it was time to actually get pregnant, we don't even know what the fuck we were doing. right? Like we were talking upstairs when we were having coffee about like, did you know that there's 4 phases to your cycle?
No, not until this year. I'm 40 years old.
That's
and I didn't
fucking crazy.
I didn't learn, and Katie and I were talking about this, how there are different things that you should do during these cycles. There are different things you should eat. There are different ways to exercise to support these cycles.
Yes.
And I just wish this was more of our conversation as younger women, instead of there being so much shame around the topic of your period, instead more empowerment. And so
and hundreds of years ago, we used to, as women, it was all the wisdom. And your period and your menstrual cycle and your womb space and having a baby was like sacred things. And now it's just medicalized, and we're treated like animals almost when it comes to going to the doctors and being gaslit, medically gaslit, or, you know, like I've been going to the doctors a lot lately. And I feel like they're like one step away from saying like, you should go get a shrink. Because it's like, oh, this is all in your head. And it's like, bitch, I have clots the size of Manhattan coming out of my foo-foo. Like, this is not normal. Right? And you know my story. Like, I was on birth control continuously for 10 years. I was put on birth control when I moved up here. So I was having some bad periods. And my OB was like, you know, you don't need your period. You know, you can just take birth control continuously and never bleed. Like, there's no medical reason to have your period. And you trust doctors because you're like, well, they have a fucking degree, and who am I? I'm just some fucking Joe Schmo from Kokomo. And you listen to them. And then 4 years ago, when my husband and I were starting to try to clean up my body from all the hormones and try to get pregnant, then you can't fucking get pregnant.
Yeah.
And no one tells us this shit.
No one tells us this.
Now, were you ever on birth control?
So I tried birth control in my 20s, and I immediately did not like the
way it made you feel.
And I went off of it. And I was like, this is not for me. But, you know, you're not the first one who has told me that they've had issues with birth control. And now, you know, thinking, what was happening to my body? What was happening to my hormones when I was kept in this state of, what is it? I guess your body thinks that you're pregnant.
Well,
I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
Well, your body is just like getting these hormone signals. It's like, you don't have to ovulate. Right. You don't have to bleed. And if you do actually bleed, like, because you take those pills, they're like sugar pills at the end, it's actually not a real menstrual period. It's called like a withdrawal bleed, or like a, you know, because it's the not having the hormones in your body makes you shed your uterine lining, not because of the hormone signals that your actual body's creating itself. It's crazy. So like, if you're on birth control for all those years and your body is being told like, you don't even have to make these hormones anymore, then when it's time to actually get pregnant, like for me, and you probably went through the same thing, like they test your AMH levels, your anti-Müllerian hormone, and then they call you on the phone. And then they just tell you like your anti-Müllerian hormones, which I'm like, what the fuck is that even mean? Right? Yeah. She's like, your anti-Müllerian hormones, they're, you know, at 0.4, and we want you at 1 or more. So your egg reserves are down. I'll talk to you later. And then they don't even fucking explain anything to you. And then I don't know how you were, but you start to go out of your mind because you're like, oh my God, I'm broken. Something's wrong with me. What do I do? And then you just keep going to the doctor, the next doctor, who just keeps gaslighting you and giving you the runaround and trying to make a lot of money off you, especially if you're going down the IVF route. Yes.
And, you know, women who are trying to get pregnant, I feel, are one of the most vulnerable populations.
Yes.
We will do anything. We will buy anything. If you sell us, we will have it in our house the very next day.
Yes.
It means that we'll be able to have babies. And so there are people that do pry upon us. Anything that says like, try this and you'll get pregnant next month. Like, fuck you.
So you started trying to have a baby when you were how old?
So I guess I sort of consider my fertility journey in sort of 2 separate parts.
Yes.
I consider like the first, before Noah. And I got married in 2017. I was 35 when I first got pregnant. I lost that pregnancy.
Okay. How far along were you?
I was like 6 weeks.
Okay.
It was early. But it was still really upsetting.
Of course.
Children, and I was like, what does this mean? So I went to the doctor, and, you know, he threw his book at me, and he said, like, this is very common. I'm going to see you again. This happens to women all the time. This is just a chromosomal abnormality. This is very, very normal. It's your body's natural way of dealing with, you know, an embryo that doesn't...
You're just telling me that, and it's making me angry. Do you know? Because it's like when they say to you, like, this is just totally normal, but it's like, this is my body, this is my life, and this is my relationship with my husband. And like that, I don't accept that as my reality. So like, let's pick another like sentence that you're going to tell me, right?
I know. And for me at the time, there was something about it that was comforting, but then another part that was like, well, why did that happen to me? Am I ever going to be able to get pregnant again? What's going to happen? And so, yeah, I guess it was his way of normalizing things for me, which it's a medical, that's the medical thing.
Yes.
That's the medical model. This is what happened, XYZ.
Yes. They're not there to comfort you, hug you, and give you a lollipop.
And I wasn't expecting that.
Right.
I guess I did want some answers, but there are no answers to be had.
And that was in 2017.
That was in 2017.
Okay.
Before I got married. And so then I remember after that experience, I met with an acupuncturist, and she said to me something that I felt at the time was really profound.
Yes.
She said, you want to have a baby, not a pregnancy. And I said, yes. She said, you can go tomorrow and you can start trying again. But
yes.
You really need to build your body up.
Yes.
And you need to do certain things so that you can have this healthy baby.
Yes.
Said, take 6 to 8 months. Take those months and really work on yourself. And, so I did acupuncture. I worked out. I did yoga. I did Tai Chi. I did like meditation.
Wow.
I did all kinds of things. And I was able to have my son relatively easy, although he was high risk. There were certain things involved.
Well, because you're elderly.
Because I'm a geriatric.
That's what
I'm
they
geriatric. Like,
oh, Bubby.
Yeah, oh, Bubby. That's what Noah calls his grandmother.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see them.
So then I had Noah, and it was high risk. I had an emergency C-section.
Boy.
Yeah. And then, so I thought, here I was kind of in this state thinking like, okay, well, I had one. Like, I'm going to be able to have it.
Right.
Like, there's not going to be a problem. And then as soon as we started trying, COVID hit.
That's when we started to really getting into it.
Yeah. And so it was like, there was all this fear, like, okay, are we going to even be able to see our doctors? Like, what does this look like for me in terms of, appointments? And I know I'll be high risk,
right?
Geriatric,
right?
And I've had a high risk pregnancy before. And so then I did get pregnant in August 2020, and I felt something wasn't right. I was kind of spotting, and I went to the doctor. I took myself in, and this is so important. But like I say to people, trust your body.
That's your intuition.
Your body.
That's right.
And I went in. It was Good Friday. I was in literally a swimsuit coming from my grandfather's Seymour's pool.
Oh, I love it.
And I was like, just going in to check the thing, and they kept me in the ultrasound for a long time.
Wow.
I could tell. I like had.
You're like, something is not right.
It's not right. Like this idea, ectopic, came into my mind, and like I had never thought of that word before. So sure enough, my doctor brings me in. She's like, "I'm so sorry. We have to take you in. We have to take you in right away to surgery." And I was like, "Can
wait a minute,
someone just
right then and there?
Explain to me what just happened?" Yeah, right then and there, I was wheeled off.
Oh my God.
Into surgery.
What a nightmare.
To remove the tube because it had ruptured and I had internal bleeding. And so, for people who don't know about ectopic pregnancy, it is when the embryo gets intercepted or fertilized in the tube, and then it gets stuck there for we don't know what reason.
So instead of implanting in the uterine wall,
right,
it stays in the tube.
Yes, it implants there, which is a non-viable pregnancy.
Did you know that it's actually the number one killer of women in the first trimester of pregnancy?
I believe it. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Scary.
And the pregnancy is never viable.
Never. There's no way to save it. So,
So they literally wheeled you into, where was your husband?
So it was COVID. So
I would have been shitting a purple Twinkie.
So,
and can I tell you something? You're saying this and I'm like, oh my God, because when COVID hit, right, Matt and I were like, we're going to have a baby. My book is launching, like all these like big milestone things we were planning that year. And my sister was pregnant at the time and she had just found out she was pregnant. So she delivered that summer. And like my mother, no one could go with her into any of that stuff. My brother-in-law, like once he was in the hospital, he couldn't leave. And in my head, I said to myself, like, this is my first pregnancy with my husband, right? I want him to be at all the ultrasounds. I want him to be there. And it was a deal breaker for me. And then he and I just kind of started like calming our tits down. And then 2 years later, here we all are still in COVID heaven, whatever.
Years later.
Yeah.
I know. But you know what? We're not the only ones that got sidelined because of COVID.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people's IVF cycles cut into.
Oh.
Can you imagine being mid-cycle
and spend all that money, all that time, all that pain.
And you can't. So, yes, there was just a massive shutdown of things. And it felt at the time like a little bit too scary.
Yes.
Even considering. So, as soon as the ectopic happened, we were referred to an IVF, a reproductive endocrinologist,
yes.
RE, who told us kind of about our chances and my AMH, and now that
Is yours low too? Not as low as me. Oh, you're doing it.
But it doesn't matter. But let me tell you, because
tell me the things.
Reserve, what I've learned, and I've learned a lot of things, it's really about the quality of your eggs.
Yes.
Because you could get 16 eggs in a retrieval.
Yes.
But those 16 eggs
have to be viable.
Have to be good.
Yes.
And so they might not. Like, all mine died out the first
No.
IVF cycle. Oh, yeah.
So wait a minute, when you did IVF the first time and they'd call you and say, all your eggs are not viable, were you just like so depressed?
Yes. I was on the floor. It was like having
this is another
miscarriage.
I don't know if I can handle that.
Well,
I mean, I know I'm a strong bitch.
I think.
But fuck.
It's really hard. It really sucks. It was just like being punched again after being down because you have this. I had this kind of romanticized idea of what IVF was. Like, you're just going to get this little egg and just shoot it right up and then it implants itself and you're fine. I didn't know that it's actually harder to do IVF, to get these perfect eggs.
Yes.
Then send them off and get them tested and then come back normal. So I've had multiple rounds where I can tell you from different experiences what it's like to do different things. So I'm now entering into my 4th round. And unfortunately, another setback. I got pregnant before this round, and I had another ectopic.
2 back to back.
2, and I have no more tubes left.
So when we were talking about a month and a half ago, before I went on vacation, you had just had surgery to remove your tubes.
Yes.
What is that called, by the way? Okay.
I don't know. There's a thing.
Yeah. A tubectomy.
A tubectomy. They had to take out my tube. Yeah.
We are not doctors on this show.
Clearly, I'm not a medical professional.
But what they do is they leave your ovaries.
Yes.
They take the tubes that connect to your uterus.
Yes.
But your uterus is still there.
Yes.
So you can still get pregnant and carry the baby with the uterus, but you just can't do it the old-fashioned way where the egg comes down the tube and shenanigans.
Exactly. You have to do IVF.
But you can still carry a baby in your uterus.
You can.
Okay. That's good news.
This is good news. So and that's why the medical model is so important, to give us options.
Because the first time you went totally holistic, you're like, I'm going to the acupuncturist. I'm going to smoke reefer with doing my Tai Chi.
I'm going to do my Tai Chi.
You were eating all kinds of weird shit, like Jamaican sea moss, and you had crystals up your hoo-ha, and it was like a whole like Swami Guru sexual scene.
Yes.
But now you're entering into this very medicalized. So you're running both sides of the fence, which this is one of the other reasons why I wanted to have you on, because so many people think it's one way or the other. But you can do both, but you're not doing both. You're going totally medical this time because you can't do the holistic stuff anymore.
Right.
Which I think is so interesting. Can you explain that to our listeners?
Yes. So hold on, let me just formulate what I want to think about.
Yes.
So I think that there are, within the medical model, there are holistic things that you can do.
Yeah, like acupuncture. Right.
Supplements.
Yoga.
Food. Nutrition.
Huge.
Yoga.
Breath work. Yes.
Meditation work, which is something I'll talk about. The mind-body connection is so important. In fact, it becomes even more important when you're just doing a medical model.
Yes.
Because you need that. Otherwise, you can
get disconnected too from like your sacred self.
Yes. You're like, okay, I trust these people to do everything. My first round, I was like, I'm just going to trust what they tell me to do, and I'm not going to do anything on my own. And then the second, when it didn't work, I was like, okay, I need to kind of shift things and change things up and do it the way that feels good for me.
Yes.
And that might include adding XYZ. What is it? Spirituality or prayer, meditation or crystals or Reiki or different things that are going to help me in this moment, because there's a lack of control that I have.
That's right.
And
we're control freaks, and we need some kind of control. We're going to freak out.
We're going to freak out.
Yes.
And so I can see from two different angles how the medical model is so necessary for people like me.
Yes.
And for so many other women. There's no shame in that. I just want to say IVF, there's no shame in having to go do that. IUI, IVF, whatever it is you need to do. I think that it's an amazing, amazing technology that has helped so many women get pregnant. That being said, you have to continue to trust your gut and yourself and what feels right to you.
Yes.
And if a doctor doesn't feel right, get a second opinion. If something feels wrong and you're having response to things, you're not sure, you're questioning what is happening, like do a little research, but then also go back to your doctor, find a doctor that you trust and say, like, listen, what do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking. So,
and by the way, the doctors work for us. We don't work for the doctors. And that's a big thing that I had to kind of tell myself going through this whole thing, because I would like sit there like I was like a peon, like listening to the doctor. And I'm like, I'm a smart fucking bitch. And I'm a CEO of a company. And I'm like, I know my shit. Like, she actually works for me. I don't work for her. So whatever she's saying to me that is not resonating with like my truth, I don't have to work with her or him or whomever.
You don't.
Right. But we don't know that. Like, did you know you can fire your nurse? Like if you're in labor and you get like, cause you never know who's going to be like your attending physician or your nurse or whatever. If you're in labor and your nurse is being an asshole, you can literally say, excuse me, you're fired. Go get another nurse to take care of me. Did you know that? And you know who told me that? My freaking nurse friends who were in labor and delivery in Boston Medical.
Wow.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I just thought because one time I was watching a video and it was of this woman in labor and she was like, oh, like really having a hardcore contraction. And the nurse came in, she goes, you want some cheese with that wine? Could you imagine you're literally this sacred vessel birthing a soul into the third dimensional reality, and some bitch in Snoopy scrubs is telling you like, you want some cheese with that wine? Like, no. But we can. But we have to know that. And that's part about being ambitious too, is knowing your rights, being able to advocate for yourself, and knowing like you don't work for them, they work for you. You're paying their salary.
Right.
The end. Right.
And that it's okay to advocate. It's okay to advocate for yourself.
Say that louder.
Like a bitch.
For the people. And
even if you do, who cares?
Right. Because it's your fucking body and it's your baby and it's your life.
Yeah. And so many women, I feel, especially me, like we are pleasers. We want everyone around us to be happy.
Absolutely.
We don't want to upset the apple cart. And so that was a big lesson for me to have to learn, is that like, no, I might sound like a bitch. I might come off like an asshole because I don't like what my doctor is doing. I might have to call them 3 or 4 times a day because I need to know this information and they're not getting back to me.
Yes.
So I think that was a big lesson for me. Also creating boundaries around what was sacred to me and this time in this space. I really had to cut some ties and build a very strong wall of protection around my family. Because some people just didn't get it. So it was during COVID and I was going to have to be tested because you need a negative PCR in order to go into a prenatal because of surgery. And so I was around people who just weren't taking that seriously. And I had to say, I'm just not going to be able to see you.
Right.
And then also saying to friends, like, I can't listen to you talk about your new baby right now.
Oh.
It's too upsetting to me.
Yes.
But in a way that is not harsh and hurtful, but in a way that protects my space. And I think that's 100%. A good lesson for everything we do.
Yes. I have friends that, when I was going through all this stuff, and I'm still going through it, when I was like just starting to take this journey, and they would just complain about their newborns. Like, oh my God, I haven't slept and this kid just shits all over me and it's just like never stops. And I'm just like, dude, the thing that you're complaining about is some person's like unattainable dream.
Yes.
Like, have some fucking compassion and some damn empathy for other people, and stop being a fucking like just a selfish see you next Tuesday.
Yes. And people don't realize that. They think
they take it personally.
To you is a helpful thing. Oh, she would want to know what this is actually like.
No, thank you.
No. We want that. We want those things.
Did anyone ever tell you during like this whole journey, and I'm sure this could happen in the future, but like, just be happy with the one that you have?
Yes.
Oh,
I hear that a lot. And I hear that a lot from people that are close to me. Just be grateful for what you have. And that I think two things can be true.
That's
like,
also,
right?
that's called spiritual bypassing, by the way. It's hurtful. It's
Spiritual
really,
bypassing.
yeah. It's when someone says to you, like say you have cancer and someone goes, but it could be so much worse. It could be stage 4 and you only have stage 3. Do you know what I mean? It's like
positive toxicity.
Ew. It's positive toxicity and it's bypassing. It's like, these are my feelings.
Right.
This is the cards that I have been dealt. This is not your reality. I know you're trying to like love on me right now and make me see the softer side of Sears, but I really don't feel like that today.
Not feeling
especially when you're having a hard especially when you're having a hard day, because it goes in like a roller coaster, right? Like one day you feel like on top of the world and the next day you're like, what the fuck am I doing to myself?
Totally.
Yeah.
I guess like that.
And were people also telling you like, well, but you're just old, you know, it's just like, this is what happens when you get old.
Yeah. But like, then why didn't you tell me that when I was 20? Because for so much of my life, I worked on my career or where I was going in my life, where I lived, and who was going to be on this path with me and finding the right person. And then I got to this point where I thought I would be able to have those children, and I cannot.
Right.
So that is a harsh reality to kind of wake up to. But I do think that the things that people say can be very, like they're coming from a good place. Well, you'd be grateful for, or at least you don't have to deal with two, up at night. I'm like, well, maybe I would love that.
Yes.
So there are a lot of things that people say that they don't unintentionally know that they're hurtful.
Right.
Hurtful things. And so it's made me I'm now in this infertility group, and we talk about this a lot. It's a group of both primary and secondary infertility.
Can you explain what that means?
Sure. So primary infertility is you have, your first child, you're struggling to have your first child. Secondary is you could have also had primary, but now you're struggling to have a second or possibly third child.
Right. So
I fall in the camp of secondary infertility. And there's one other girl in the group who also has secondary infertility, but most of us of the women are primary. And so there's a part of me that feels a sense of guilt, like I at least have a child.
Yes.
And so that I have to let go of that, because what brings us together, we do have so much in common and we have so much to discuss with each other. That's what binds us together.
Right.
We are feeling those same feelings, despite the fact I have one child and they don't.
That's crazy.
I know.
But it's so beautiful that you have a group like that.
Yeah, it's been really
community
helpful.
Is huge when you're going through something like this. I will say this one thing. I made a big mistake earlier on in my fertility journey because I'm using my quotation fingers, you guys can't see, but because I'm a public figure, I always feel like I have to be so open and so real and so like raw with my people, my community, because I want them to understand like I'm a human, blah, blah, blah. And I would tell, so I went live one day and I told people about like what I was going through, because I felt in my own heart that I was struggling in the public arena, because I wasn't showing up on Instagram, and I was like going through a lot of like, my own mental shit, right? And sadness and depression and fear and all these things. And so I went live, and then so many people were so supportive and so many people were so fucking mean and just so rude. Oh my God. So mean, so rude. Like, yeah, like crazy. Like, why would you even want to have a child in this world? Like, this world is shit. And, just things like that. Yeah. And then other people, which I know again, that they were like they were trying from the bottom of their heart to like help me. But they were like, you got to have sex with your husband under the full wolf moon up the ass. And then you have to put your legs up straight. And then you have to put a black tourmaline under your pillow. And I'm like,
all the wives stuff.
Oh my God. Like, tell me something that you've heard. Tell me something that you've heard, because I love shit like this.
Well, definitely the legs up the wall is one. Like, what are some other? There were other things. Like I had this book. There was like things that you should put under your bed.
Oh yeah.
The saints that you should have, and I will say another part of infertility is this like kind of crisis of spirituality and religion.
Oh, tell me about that.
Ooh,
like angry at God. A little bit.
Kind of just like, who do I pray to now?
Yeah.
Like, where?
Because someone's like, pray to the goddess Kali because she's fertility, but you're like, but she's Hindu and I'm a Jew, and what the hell's going on?
Yeah, and you're like, okay, I grew up this way and I'm this way, but what what prayers are going to speak to me?
Yes.
Do I mix this? So I'm both Christian and Jewish.
Yes.
I'm a weird mix, but I'm mostly Jewish now. So.
Yes.
But so what resonates resonates with me.
Am I praying to Mother Mary? Who
am I bringing into this scheme?
Yes.
Who's going to help me? And then
I love that you're saying this, by the way, because I've been feeling the same exact way. Because people, and I love it because like people will send me like saints. Like I have an amazing client in Ambitchious Academy named Karen Whittle, and she gave me this beautiful box. She had visited me a couple weeks ago, and she gave me Saint Gerard, and she's like, "This helped me get pregnant with my children." So now I have Saint Gerard like up my yin yang.
I have Saint Gerard too because my friend Liz, Rose, shout out to Liz Rose.
Hi, Liz Rose.
She is like my IVF.
Ride or die.
She like came in like when I was at my most vulnerable, found out that all the eggs were dead, and she was like my Mrs. Doubtfire. She like rushed to the scene and like she just immediately scooped me up into her arms and was like, "Let me help you." Like,
and you were like,
"Thank you." And I was like, "Yes, I need that." And everybody needs a person to go through this with.
Yes.
Which it can be a wonderful, wonderful thing. It can also be super challenging because one of you might get pregnant and the other one doesn't. And so you're navigating so many different feelings at the same time within this. Liz has gone on to have, she was pregnant at the time she went on to have a little
awesome
child. I know, she's so precious. But it does help to have those surrounding you with positive, not toxic, but positive energy.
Yes.
Information and support. There's so much that's part of IVF that's educational.
Yes.
Learning different aspects of it. That was just such an eye-opener for me. I had no idea. I'm still learning.
Yeah. And it's a continual learning. And then on top of it, then you have like the spiritual aspect where you're like, okay, what should I be doing with my physical body, movement wise, right? What should I be, like you were saying, who do I pray to? Do I meditate? Do I do alternate nostril breathing? Like, do I put a turban on my head and get a crystal ball? And like, it's a lot. It's almost like better when you're dumb.
Yeah.
Like ignorance.
You know these things, you just get knocked up easily.
Do you remember those days?
Yes.
When you were just a fertile myrtle and you could just like.
Also those kind of girls.
Right?
Like, we're teenage, so that's my background as in education and counseling. So I would spend time with teenagers who are mothers. And I was just like, wow, how did you do?
Right.
They're in these circumstances that are really difficult. And I can't imagine being them. But at the same time, it's like, wow, that could have been me.
Yes.
Easily.
Well, if we weren't scared to shit when we were kids saying like, close your legs to married men. Like Nene. I mean, like, it's true. But now it's like, whoa, why didn't anyone educate us about like when it's time to actually procreate and have a bebe? What do you do? Because none of us know this shit. If you could give any advice to a woman who's going through either, doesn't have to be IVF, but it just could be even fear around being a mother or getting pregnant, or if they're in an IVF cycle, or what would be like your biggest advice for them? And I know you already said like, get your ride or die, get your person.
Get a person that you can text who knows what it feels like to be in your boat. Have support. Support is so key. Like in your toolbox, you need support. You need mind-body stuff. You need meditation. Something that's going to calm your cortisol because you don't want to be in a fight or flight response. You need homeostasis with all of your hormones in your body.
Which, by the way, that's my baseline is fight or flight. Yeah. Like my adrenal. So I did an adrenal test, to see if I had adrenal fatigue during all this. Oh my God. Like if you saw it, it was like a Richter scale. It was just like all over the place, because that's how but that's my baseline. Like I don't know any different. So it's almost like, and this is a great point you just brought up. It's like rewiring your body to unlearn everything you've learned and to undo all of the badness that used to give you like an edge to be successful.
Exactly. Like I was going to say, you learned this. You learned that flight or flight.
Hustle, bitch, hustle.
And you built this empire because you hustled.
Yes.
And so, yes, there is a rewind on that. And there's a relearning of what it means to take care of yourself again.
Yes. And some of us don't even know how to take care of ourselves. It's really crazy. You just brought up, like, it sparked this in my mind. I went through a very angry, resentful period during this time. It wasn't like very long, but there was definitely like a good chunk where I was so angry at myself and I was so angry at my clients, even though it wasn't them doing this to me. But I'm like, for the last 20 years, woke up every day to take care of tens of thousands of people over my 20 plus year career. Like every day worrying about like, what are they eating? How are they doing? Are they taking care of themselves? Getting girls ready for Miss USA and Miss America and listening to everyone's shit. And then when it was like time for me to have the baby, number one, no one gave a fuck. And I'm making a generalized comment, right? Like there's a lot of people that love me and care, but like all those people that I helped, like no one gave a fuck. And I also was resentful. Like I just spent all my life taking care of you as my children. And then it's like, I postponed having a child when I probably should have physically. I mean, yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but like physically with like hormones and the egg reserves and all that kind of stuff. And now it's like almost like, and I don't think that this is too late, but it's like, okay, now it's like getting down to the wire where they start being like, oh God, you know, you're really high risk and you're geriatric and you don't want to fucking hear that.
No, nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
Especially when they've built so much of their life serving others.
Yes.
You've spent so much time helping others. And so I could totally see why you would be angry. And there's a lot of anger that comes into infertility and fertility as a whole. And I think it's important as women that we show these wide range of emotions. We have them. So I think that that's really important not to deny that this fucking sucks.
It does.
Nobody wants to be in this position or in this circumstance of finding themselves unable to have a child when they want to have a child, you know? And so
as far as the toolbox goes, give me like a good book for the toolbox.
Okay. So I would recommend anything by Ali Domar.
I've never heard of her.
So she led them, and I think she still leads them, but she's a therapist at Boston IVF, which is not the place that I go for my treatments, but I do, I'm in a mind-body group through Boston IVF. They've done a lot of research into mind, body, and infertility and the outcomes of being in these groups for women and, you know, their feelings of joy and gratitude. Also, their ability to get pregnant after being in these mind-body groups, you know, increases. So anything by Ali Domar, I think she has one book. It's like Healthy Woman, Healthy. Oh, I'm not going to say the right thing. But that has been really life-changing for me. It's an older book. It was written in 1996.
I'll find her stuff and we'll put it in the show notes.
Yes. So she's wonderful. Also, what was helpful for me was it starts with the egg. And I'm blanking on the author. But there's a lot in that book about supplementation, which definitely consult with a doctor about whether or not these supplements are right for you. But I did start supplementing, you know, this before my first IVF cycle. I had not done any supplementation. And so with these subsequent rounds, I have been doing much more supplements. And I think they do really support like CoQ10.
Yes.
All these different things, they do support your egg health. And
yes.
So that's a really important thing. So that book is great. And also it has a sort of a recipe book.
I love that.
Really nice, which is good. But I also, saying this, I also want people to recognize that, like, you know, I don't want it to be any kind of like blame on you, like feeling like you can and you can't control this. Some of these things are things you can't control, right? Like there are some things that you can't control about infertility, right. But there are some things that you can do your best to try,
yes,
and manipulate a little bit. I think that was one of the hardest lessons I learned about infertility is that we spend our whole lives thinking that the harder we try to do something, like we will achieve that goal.
Yes.
And IVF is like the complete opposite. Like you could work really, really hard and then you might not have an outcome. And so that's really hard. So building your toolbox will be to, you know, have supports, to have mantras and meditations that are support your health on a daily basis. Do it daily. Do it on the regular to support you. Gratitude journals,
love it.
Listing things that you're just grateful for, even if it's like a cup of coffee,
right?
Sort of, you know, eliciting the relaxation response, whether that's through meditation or acupuncture.
Don't try to put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. That's a good tool for your toolbox because that's my baseline. I'm like, how much work can I do today?
No.
And it's actually the opposite.
Slow it down.
You have to.
Slow it down.
You have to.
Start to just feel what it's like to be silent and quiet with your thoughts sometimes, but carve out that space for yourself. which is hard for moms to do too, and hard for women who grow empires like you to do too, because you're constantly helping others.
Yes. Yes.
And so it really is unique. It's not selfish. It is really important to take that time. So those are some of my things I would find, getting outside, getting air, getting in the sun,
communing with nature,
being by the beach, being with people you love, also laughing with your loved ones or friends.
Because don't we get so serious when we go into this mode?
So
we're like, lock and load.
In this mode. Yeah,
warrior.
God, I had this baby.
Right.
And it's like, well, we need to laugh too. We need to enjoy this time together. And I think COVID's taken that a little bit away from us. And so I think, knocking on wood, that we're hopefully coming out of the woods and not, because that's been really traumatic for women for the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
Isolation
totally.
In general. And so if you feel like you're in this fertility journey and you're feeling isolated, that's not a good sign.
Right.
You want to make sure you're reaching out to people, finding things if it's helpful, like podcasts, or you can just search in like infertility and a bunch of things.
YouTube. I mean, there's so much stuff.
So many guided things. There are so many resources out there.
So there's no excuses really when people say because a lot of people can play victim because it's just who they are, and it's what their limiting beliefs and their learned behavior. But really, there's so many outlets. Just be your own advocate. I have a question for you. Yeah. So you gave us your toolbox for the women who are going through this. What advice would you give for the other women who maybe aren't going through this, but are going to be in someone's life that maybe is going through it? So what would you give them advice, what to say, what not to say, and how to show up and how not to show up? Because I think for me, that's been such a hard thing, because people want to help, but they don't know how to help. And then they end up saying something stupid or fucked up or, whatever. And because it's not that they're bad people. They just don't know what to do and what to say. Yeah. People will be like, oh my God. I mean, when I had my 6 kids, it was just snapping my fingers and getting pregnant. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that, Maureen.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah.
Glad it was easy for you and Bill in 1983.
Exactly.
Cool.
Right.
That's such a good question, because you wouldn't believe the things people say. But then also,
I do believe them.
Really do know what to do. Yeah.
Yes.
You do.
Oh, I do, girl.
I think the most helpful thing is to not ask too many questions, to just say, as a friend, I'm here for you. I'm so sorry about what you're going through. If you ever want to talk about these things, I am here.
I'm here to hold space.
Yeah, and I've had friends that just go on walks with me, or leave books by my door.
Nice.
Or leave me chocolates, or just say, I'm thinking about you. And then I have the opposite end of people who are bombarding me with pictures of their babies and talking about other things related to babies. And I have to learn how to, I've since learned how to temper my response.
Yes.
So I used to get super pissed and super angry.
Oh, I bet.
Wanting to throw my phone. And I had this just gut response to being angry.
Triggered.
And then it's you know what? No, it's not up to them to figure out how to work around me.
It's up to you to tell them.
Right. It's up to me to put boundaries down and say, you know what? I'm going to mute this conversation, or I don't need to talk about baby names with you right now. That's not helpful to me.
Right.
I just got out of surgery for my second, third miscarriage. You know what I mean?
Because we teach people how to treat us.
We do.
And then we're like, why is she saying this to me? And why is she doing this? Well, because we've allowed it. Yeah. Or we've just let it, run rampant. And we are the ones that have to be this isn't really helping me. I appreciate you, but this is actually not helping me. Or just like you said, you don't have to tell them anything. You can just mute them. You can put them on pause or whatever the fuck you kids do now on the social medias.
In the medias. Well, it's so hard to be an empath, right?
Oh, I'm a huge
everyone
empath.
Is coming to you and you pick up on their energy and they want to tell you their story.
Oh, yeah.
How easy it was for them to get pregnant or their miscarriages too. I've also heard a lot of sad stories too.
Yes.
I don't know how helpful this is. And that was one thing about Instagram. I had to kind of switch off. Because I was following some people and they were getting pregnant or they were losing babies and I was getting so involved in their journey.
Yes.
I was relating to it at first, but then I was no, we are doing different things.
That's right.
So it is important to have a buddy, someone who goes through this with you, but also know when it's not helpful for you and not healthy, that you're drawing comparisons or you're feeling bad about something or you're getting too wrapped up into their story and you're not focusing enough on yourself.
Yes.
So, but that's such a good question. And, as a culture, I don't think we really know how to handle grief in such a delicate way. Like that has to do with miscarriage and IVF and all these things. Like dealing with miscarriage is not our forte. Dealing with death is not part of our cultural,
experience. It's true. It's true. But if you think about sacred, ancient, tribes and communities, it was like if a woman had lost a child, the community would just gather around her and lift her up and do whatever. I mean, God damn it, we used to bleed in tents together and sing and brush each other's hair and shit. Like, what happened to those days?
I don't know. I want them back.
I think we should bring them back.
I know. I think my husband would appreciate that.
Matt would be like, send her off for 5 days. Bye.
The words of the bells will get you in your blood.
Exactly. But we knew what we were doing. And because of the toxic patriarchy, right? Because of the toxic masculine, we've had to been like, we're guys too, and we're going to put on our power suits. We're going to hustle our tits off. And it's like, women aren't supposed to do that. We're supposed to flow. We're supposed to listen to our divine intuition. We're supposed to be these like sacred goddesses that are roaming the earth. And we have to remember that we all are that. Yes. But we've had it pulled from us over the millennia. And I think now that it's coming back piece by piece. I don't know if you feel that, but we're starting even with Ambitchious, the community, like that's all I strive for that, to have that community. Like we've had in the last year, so many people lose husbands and moms and all these different things to all a plethora of different reasons. And like, we all band together, we all get them beautiful care package. Like it's just beautiful. And no one fucking does that shit anymore. You're lucky if you even get a little fucking edible arrangement.
Yeah.
I do like a dip strawberry.
Yeah, I will take that. But you're right though, that what you're doing with Ambitchious and this community is so valuable for women, to have a space where they can share and they can be a part of something that's spiritual, holistic, and just practical, like elevating them to this level that they never thought possible. We don't really have any opportunities to do that as women. So kudos to you, because that's so amazing.
Thanks, friend. Yeah, and thank you for being such a good friend, because over the last couple months too, you've been super supportive to me and just asking me questions that like don't offend me, which is like, no, it's like amazing. I'm like, wow, she actually cares and she like knows her shit. Where other people are like, is Matt busting nuts in you 24/7? And I'm like, scary. Very scary.
Very scary. And you know what? There's a lot of pressure on men too around this.
Oh,
like, on our partners.
Absolutely.
Like, come on, don't look just at Matt and Jesse. Like, or actually look at them too, because it's hard for them. And so there needs to be more support. I know we're talking about women.
No, I love this.
There needs to be more support for men and their feelings around this too, because it's challenging. I think can be a lot of hopelessness for them.
I feel like Matt doesn't know what to do sometimes. Yeah. Like I was telling you before, like we went to Mexico. And I was like, I'm going to have like crazy, wild, like tantric goddess sex. And I had like, because I mean, it's been like a really stressful time, and like, you don't get honey when things are crazy. Right. So I'm like, I am going to be like a sexual goddess. And then we got there and I had my period for the second time in a month. And I was literally wearing full on Lisa Rinna Depends the whole time I was in Mexico. And I was like, Matt, do you want a hand job? Like anything? Like I can like spit on my hand real quick. Like it will be great. And Matt's like, get the fuck away from me. Right. And I'm like, I feel like almost like a bad wife sometimes. You know what I mean? Yes. Because I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm bleeding for the 32nd time this month. Like it just gets really old. And he's like, you're in so much pain. I don't know what to do. Like, do I get more tequila? Do you want me to get you a Xanax? Like, do you want me to like push on your back? Like they don't know what to do.
They don't.
Because actually that's been stripped of them too. Because men actually in tribal culture understand what's happening with the woman. And like now it's like, it's almost like back in the day when you would watch like Downton Abbey and the man would like go with a cigar in the smoking room and wait till the baby to be born.
Yes, yeah.
And then the woman comes out like Kate Middleton and she's like in her perfect outfit. And you're like, this isn't real life. No. And that's really what's happened to our society, both masculine and feminine.
You're so right. You're so right. This just puritanical.
Yes.
Garb of bleh.
It
I don't even know what to say. But
so
it's true. And men need more support too. It's And I totally hear what you're saying. Like, oh, I feel like a bad wife.
Yeah.
Like, I'm healing for the third time. I healed from the C-section. I healed from 2 ectopics. Like, oh, like I'm not going to be a good wife to you. I can't serve you in that way.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
we serve each other like emotionally or
totally
in different ways too. And I think it brings a marriage closer together. I think, infertility.
I think if you are both got your shit together.
Yes.
Like if you're both like spiritual, loving beings who are not drifters and not like, doing things for the wrong reasons, it can totally it's made my marriage with my husband closer. But I've seen IVF rip people apart too.
It can.
Right?
It can.
Because you're maybe, people are doing it for all the wrong reasons. And that's going to catch up to you sooner or later too.
Man just is not interested in knowing why it's going on.
Yes.
Or, doesn't really want it. You both have to really want it to do it.
Yes, absolutely. This was such an amazing conversation.
So neat.
Where can people find you? Like on Insta, where's all the things?
I'm on Instagram. My name is Bonnie Lou. AYEBONNIE Lou. LOU. I have a private account, but I will make it public.
I love it because you're going to get a lot of ambitches following you.
I would love for you to follow me, and I will do more.
And you can see all your cutie pictures of Noah and JFK Jr., aka Jesser. Thank you for coming all the way to the Shire.
Oh my goodness, this was my pleasure. Thank you.
It was awesome, and you educated me so much. And I know for a fact that all the women out there listening that are either going through something like this or supporting someone going through this is going to really just feel more empowered and educated. And thank you for that.
Well,
I appreciate it.
I'm so happy. I hope so. I hope that it can be helpful. And if I didn't share anything, well, if people have questions, I can always
reach out,
ideas or whatever. That's kind of my experience of what's happening. And so,
I love having this conversation. Thank you guys so much, so much for listening to the Ambitchious Podcast. And if you feel like this show will resonate with someone that you know, share it, tag us, do all the things. I don't even have to give you directions. You know what the fuck to do. Okay. Like I always say, stay ambitious.